Looks like we got a good crew here. So I think y'all might get muted here in a second, just so we can make sure that everyone can hear. Again, my name's Jared here with Team Chip. So I'm going to be just kind of helping out here, making sure everything runs smoothly. We are going to have Chip speak for a minute, and then we're going to have y'all be able to open up for questions, comments, anything else you want to hear and talk about for this. Again, you can submit those in the chat at any time, and we will make sure we get to those. If you want to ask over the Zoom meeting, you can also raise your hand when the time comes, and we'll get you there. But first, we're just going to have Chip talk a little bit about why he's running. So for those who are not aware, Chip Coldiron is running for U.S. House here in the 3rd District. Born in Fort Wayne, raised in Wells County, graduate of Norwell High School and Indiana University. He is a former healthcare worker, Army veteran, deployed twice to Afghanistan, and is now a science teacher at Norwell High School. And I believe he'll be the only one in Congress with that background, which is pretty exciting. So with that, I will pass it off to the next U.S. representative for the 3rd District, Chip Coldiron.
All right. First of all, I want to say thanks for showing up, guys. First time we've been doing this, so new to everybody, I think. My name's Chip Coldiron. I'm from Wells County. Went to Norwell High School, graduated there, and then graduated from Indiana University, joined the military, deployed twice to Afghanistan, got out, and for the last 10 years I've been teaching. First I taught down at a school called Edgewood High School in Bloomington, Indiana, and then for the last 5 years I've been teaching at Norwell, the same high school that I graduated from. When I got my undergraduate degree from IU, I decided to join the military. Kind of how that all happened. I was thinking about going into med school, and then September 11th happened, and that's when I picked up a major in political science, and then finished that out before I enlisted in the Army. Went to Afghanistan twice. While I was in the Army, I figured out that I really liked helping other people learn, because you start to teach the younger soldiers everything that you got to know, and I really like that aspect of teaching other people, so I got out, and that's how I became a teacher. So I've been teaching and coaching football for the last 10 years, and then had a son born about 4 years ago, and he was born with a small hole in his heart. And the first 2 years, when we took him to the pediatric cardiologist, it was just $300 out of pocket, and so kind of no big deal there. I mean, $300 is $300, but it could be worse. And then this past summer, the pediatric cardiologist, he was bought out by a larger hospital, and that $300 out-of-pocket cost shot up to $3,000. And so I started talking to people that I worked with, my neighbors, trying to figure out what the heck's going on here. Is everybody experiencing this? And it came down to, everybody has high deductibles, high premiums, and a lot of people are, just going bankrupt essentially because of medical expenses. So that's kind of how I jumped into this ball game, running for Congress. I looked into Jim Banks. I looked into what he was all about. He had a town hall meeting back in July of 2019, and this issue was brought up to him. And essentially, it's just like, it's not my problem. His idea is to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, but there's no real replacement. So he just kind of wants to leave people without insurance at all, and still having people to pay high dollars out of their own pockets. So that's kind of what's kind of prompted me to jump into this race. What else about me? Let's see. Not only am I, trying to bring down healthcare costs, one of my other tenets of my campaign is that I'm big into labor unions. The more I look into it, labor unions in Northeast Indiana are really, should be a big deal. There's a lot of unions around here. I'm a member of my own union, the teachers union. And again, a lot of Republican legislation has been, geared towards taking away rights of laborers or of unions. And unions are important for everybody, not just people that are in them, because they make sure that your working conditions are very, taken care of, as well as they raise, your wages for everybody, not just people that are in the actual union. So labor unions is important to me as well. It's one thing I want to tackle and make sure that's protected if I do get elected. And then the last tenet of my my campaign. As a science teacher, I'm really involved into the environment. I think it's important that we keep our environment healthy and safe. And a lot of times people think, well, if you're going to protect the environment, then you're going to forego the economy. Well, I don't see it that way. One of the things that I'd like to do is really incorporate ways to not only improve the environment, but also improve our economy here in Northeast Indiana. We have, several places that kind of went out of business with manufacturing. There's no reason why we couldn't open those back up and become like the world's leader in solar panels, or the world's leader in wind turbines. So those are my big three things there of my campaign that I'd like to look into if I get elected. Jump in on healthcare, try to tackle that, and then work my way with the labor unions and the environment as well. Got some other notes here for you. So we're all here, because of the COVID-19. It's unfortunate that we got to do it this way, but there is kind of a silver lining. We can capture more people from different areas instead of just having it in one localized area. So that's one of the positives there. But the COVID-19 thing, again, our representative, in my opinion, isn't doing a great job here. His goal is to kind of make China pay. I think that's the wrong route to go. We need to be working with other nations right now instead of singling them out. There's no reason why we can't be working with scientists from China and scientists from all over the rest of the world to try to find a vaccination. But instead, our representative is hell-bent on trying to get reparations out of them. And if you know your history, reparations don't end up so well. Reparations from World War I ended us and right back into World War II. So reparations, in my opinion, and trying to make China pay is the wrong way to go. I think it really needs to be focusing on getting nations to work with each other, and just for Northeast Indiana, trying to get more tests and more contact tracing going on here, which seems to be lacking throughout all of Indiana, not just Northeast Indiana. What I've been doing these past few weeks that we've been on the Corona isolation type thing. Been making phone calls to people throughout Northeast Indiana, trying to convince them to vote for me. Been getting news articles put in the paper. Had some letters to the editor sent. Wrote my own op-ed. Got that put into the Journal Gazette. Keeping up on the social media type things. And then obviously here with our virtual town hall, which we plan on trying to do a lot more on probably a bi-weekly basis from now until to the election as well. So that's kind of the things I've been doing. If anybody has any other ideas how I can campaign while still stuck in my house, please let me know. All right, let's open it up to questions. Who wants to shoot me one first?
Thanks. If y'all have any questions, again, you can put that in the chat. You can also raise your hand, and I believe Dylan will be able to unmute you and have you ask that over this. We'll give everyone a second, but we also have a couple of questions on if you're still thinking about some. Okay. Do we want to go? So I think John Bodner,
Yeah.
You have a question? Yeah, great. Go for it.
Hi, John.
Hi, my question, I was wondering, are you getting any support from the Democratic Party, the local and state of Indiana? Nationally, I don't know if they even send any money back to Indiana because it's such a tough area for them. But I was wondering if you are getting any support from them, any links that you can use and stuff like that.
Yeah, as far as money's concerned, they're not donating to my campaign or anything like that yet, but there are different avenues that I can ask for advice. I've been in contact with John Zodi at the Indiana Democratic office there, and a couple different people down there. So whenever I have questions, I can shoot them to them, and they get back with me. The Allen County Democratic headquarters with Misty Meehan, she's been a great resource too. So there's been people out there that I can turn to and ask them, how do I do this, or what do I need to get that done, things like that. So definitely resources as far as that is concerned. And then after the primary, whoever is the primary winner, then the party will get behind them 100%, and I assume help them out trying to get some more resources to campaign and things like that. So, but right now, just the resources as far as campaigning has just been on me and my campaign team to kind of to rile up. So.
Oh, it's great. I know they're always coming and asking for donations, and I have a feeling that it's usually, if it's the National Democratic Party, it usually just goes toward races where they're more competitive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've told them, and that hasn't affected their calling me, but I'd rather just give to individual candidates instead of putting it out into the national, let everybody take care of their own area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I've kind of determined too. I think that when it does come down to helping people with funds, it's gonna, if it's coming from the actual Democratic Party, from the state of Indiana, it's gonna go to places where they think that they're gonna win. So they probably won't be going to me because Jim Banks, won by 60, or what was it, 65-35 over Courtney Church. So people probably don't think this is a competitive race, but I'm doing my best to try to make it competitive. So yeah, if you're gonna donate, donate directly to my campaign, and you can do that through the website there, or you can send me a check to my address, however way you feel comfortable doing that. So.
Yeah, much rather do it individually, tell you the truth.
Okay, sounds good.
Great, thank you. Thanks for the question. I just tossed in the link to our Act Blue as well. So if you do want to support the campaign, that link is right there in the chat. I believe Adrian Winters has the next question, and we've got a couple more coming in. So we're queuing y'all up, but we'll go to Adrian next.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Coldiron, thank you so much. First of all, this is just wonderful that you're doing this with people, voters, and it's just wonderful. So thank you, first of all, for putting this together. I kind of wanted to piggyback off the question John was asking about finances and money and stuff like that, because we have just got to get rid of our current representative. He is he's so in the bag for Trump, it's disgusting. But I'm concerned with can we beat him, simply because, looking at the race 2 years ago with Courtney Church, I really thought she was going to pull it off. I really, really did. And I was devastated when she lost. But she spent over $1 million. How in the world are we going to overcome that barrier? And I know that's a tough question, but I just really want to see this Jimmy defeated.
Yeah, it's kind of like how do you eat an elephant? You got to eat it one bite at a time. So I just got to get out there and get out there when I can get out there. But make sure that I'm talking to people. As long as I talk to people and let them know that I'm trying to help them. I'm not doing this for my own personal gain. I'm a career public servant, not a career politician, and that's what Jim Banks really is all about. And the more people that I talk to about that, regardless of whether or not they have a D or an R behind their name, I seem to get that message across a lot of the times. Now there's going to be that 10-20% hardcore. No matter what, they're going to punch the R for everybody that's running as a Republican. But there's a lot of people in the middle there that they just got to be convinced that, hey, a Democrat can be for me. So that's my job. I just got to, get my message out there. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. It's about how many votes you get. So I just got to do a good job of talking to people and getting people to know who I am, and that I'm trying to help them. And I'm not in this for me. I'm trying to do this for our community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Adrian. So I think we are going to go to Curtis Nash next. So we'll get you unmuted, and there you go. You're up.
Okay. Thanks for this opportunity, Chip. I've been interested in your campaign since you started. One thing I always wonder about every politician, but thinking ahead, and you're in office, and what do you do if you have a feeling on a particular issue and overwhelmingly your constituency feels the other way? Are you more of a representative and follow them despite your feelings, or do you go with your gut and overturn them?
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of being a representative is to represent the people that that voted you, that you are there for. So someone's asked me that question before, when it came down to healthcare or whatever, on the campaign trail. And they asked me, is like, if it's better for, the general population as a whole to vote on some kind of legislation, and it's going to hurt you and your family, you're going to vote for that. And I said, well, absolutely. The whole point of being a leader is that you put people ahead of your own needs. So, so absolutely. If it comes down to the people of Northeast Indiana wanting something for me to vote on, or me to create some kind of legislation, even though it goes against what I might think is best, I'm going to do that, because that's what I'm elected to do, is represent the actual people of Northeast Indiana.
All right, great to know. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Curtis. So we've got Paul Henderson up next, and you are unmuted. You can go ahead.
Hi, Chip. Good to see you.
Hi, Paul.
I've got kind of a four-part question here, and this is kind of touching on what you opened your statements with. This is about Medicaid.
Okay.
I'm not quite at that age yet, and you'll have to forgive my camera. I'm on my wife's computer. So I'm just wondering, do you support or oppose making Medicaid a block grant program?
A block grant program. Can you explain that to me? How's that work?
Well, as some of the other states have done, they'll go the other direction using a new White House program, which can cap how much will be spent on Medicaid.
Yeah, so only so many dollars per area, right? Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. What that's really creating, like a competition for people to get those funds first, and I don't think that's really a good idea. What ends up happening is, a lot of people, especially those with some disabilities, end up kind of, not having the money that they need. So I don't think that's really a great idea to go about it that way. So if we're going to have, Medicare for all, or however we're going to fix this healthcare system, it needs to be for everybody, and not another system where you're competing to get those funds first. So I don't really like that block grant idea, I don't think.
Great. Now, my second question is, would you work to preserve the state's option to expand the Medicaid programs?
Absolutely. Anytime you can expand healthcare to more individuals, I think we need to look at that. We need to find ways to pay for that, obviously, but expanding, your Medicaid, your Medicare programs throughout the country or throughout the state, is definitely something I'm in favor. But I got to work from it at the federal level, right? I can't infringe upon, the governor's rights and state representative rights like that. But from the national level, if fixing, when I talk about improving healthcare, I would like to try to fix the Affordable Care Act first, but I'm also flexible to know if that's not going to work, we're going to find something else. And if that means, to expand it to Medicare for all and go that route, then I'm all in favor for that too. We just got to find a solution. I don't care whose name's on it. I don't care, where how we got to do it, but we got to find a solution and make sure that we have affordable health care for everybody, not just the healthy and the wealthy.
Okay, that's great. That answers my next question. And would you agree they would not cut Medicaid to pay for other government spending? In other words, you would not take from Medicaid for other spending in the government.
Yeah, that sounds like an awful idea. We talk about trying to find funds for different things. I was in the military. Believe it or not, we would go to a firing range, and you go to qualify on your rifle or qualify on your mortar, in my case, and they drop off a box of ammo, and they'd say, qualify obviously first, and then once everybody got done, we would have several thousands of rounds or hundreds of rounds, if it was a mortar tube there, left, and no one would come and pick them back up. They would just say burn them off. This is just one example of where if we stop that habit of burning through, ammunition at a firing range in the military, you could save hundreds of thousands, millions, who knows how much money that could be put into other programs and to expand things like health insurance and things like that. So, never cut stuff that's paying for people's insurance, but find other ways to get that money. And, to be honest, there's other ways that we can do that in the military and still be just as an effective fighting force. And I know people will try to take that and spin it and say I'm trying to cut military, but that's not the case. I know that we can be just as effective by doing small little things from that military budget and using it for other places.
Great, great. Well, you answered my questions, and you got my vote, buddy.
All right, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. And so we've got one question in the chat. Folks might be able to see it already. Brandon, thanks for being on. Been a while since I've seen it. So Chip, what do you think of the last stimulus bill? Specifically, do you think there were gaps or populations that were left out that need to be addressed in the next package if Congress decides to put together another stimulus? I think most people would agree that $1,200 cannot last long for most folks. Some have proposed $2,000 a month going into any tax-paying individuals in the U.S. What would you be in favor for in a package like that? Thanks, Brandon.
All right, so I guess I need to figure out which one is being referred to as the last one, because we've had like 3 different ones, and I think one might have got passed today as well. So as far as the $1,200 one, obviously that's not going to if we're in stay in shelter for much longer, that's not going to suffice for people who are unemployed and not being able to pay their bills. So so obviously we're gonna have to do something else with that. I don't know if it's $2,000 or whatever the magic number is, but we got to figure out if we can open up the economy and who can go back, and there's just a lot of details there that we got to look into. I think before we figure out how much money is going to be going to different people. So what was the rest of those questions? Different populations unaffected, is that right?
Yeah, if anyone was left out or other populations or gaps that need to be addressed.
Yeah, one of the gaps I think that I thought was addressed to begin with was oversight as to who gets the money, but it seems as though President Trump has kind of figured out a way to fire that person. So now I don't know who is actually overseeing the distribution of funds to businesses. So I think that needs to go back into place. And then also the small businesses that was already tapped out within a few weeks. So we got to figure out what in the world is going on there. So I saw that some businesses kind of returned the money that didn't need it, but again, some more oversight in there to figure out which businesses really need it and which businesses can pass it on, so to speak. So I really think we need someone in there to do the oversight than just the person that was just fired and not having anybody in place.
Thank you, Brandon. I don't think we've got anyone queued up right at the moment, but I do have another question from the email, so we'll go there. So Lillian, not sure if you are on or not, but over email asked, how will you help the people of Puerto Rico? It seems this administration doesn't care much about the people of Puerto Rico. Millions of bottles of water got ruined without it getting to the people. The island is still not functioning properly with many homes and roads not rebuilt yet. What would be your plan for these citizens? And the second question after that is, what is your plan to help the homeless in Indiana?
All right, so yeah, people of Puerto Rico got kind of ignored by this administration. So I'm not sure exactly the person that is in charge, whether it be Ben Carson in HUD or who it might be, but someone needs to get over there in Puerto Rico and make sure that this gets straightened out. There needs to be someone over there directing, supplies, bring them in. I know obviously everyone's in a shelter in place here in the United States now, that makes it even more difficult, but whenever we open back up, we can actually get stuff flowing back and forth across to Puerto Rico. We need someone to oversee it, just like we needed someone to oversee the distribution of the funds for the coronavirus bailout type stuff. So it seems as if there's just not a lot of leaders in place making sure stuff gets done, and I think that has to do a lot with the administration and from the White House, just firing people and putting people as interim positions. Regardless, if you're Democrat or Republican, we need people as civil servants. Is really what we need. The civil servants have been gutted, and we need to make sure that our civil servants are put back in place and they're actually doing their jobs. So out in Puerto Rico, that would really make a big difference. Here in Indiana, we just need to make sure that we're continuing to put funds into programs that help the homelessness. The continuing care program, I believe is what it's called, is big here throughout the country to help finding homeless people houses. And that's the number one priority to helping those individuals. Obviously they're homeless, but they're homeless for a reason. But you got to get them a home first before you can actually figure out why they are homeless. So making sure funds continue to go into that continuing care program is going to be essential for the homelessness throughout the country.
Great. And thank you, Lillian, if you are on. Thanks for sending that in. Appreciate it. Again, if anyone else has questions, follow-up questions, anything like that, feel free to chat us or raise your hands, and we will get to you. John, I think you might be raising your hand. If we can get John unmuted, he's got another one.
Yeah, I was just wondering, about getting your message out too. You guys tried with WOWO at all? That is like a great Jim Banks megaphone in our area. I'm not sure if you get a fair shake from them or not, but I'd sure love to hear your voice on them. I put them on once in a while, not very often, but you do need to reach people that are in the middle, and have you guys tried there at all?
Yeah, that's a great idea, John. I hadn't thought about that. So I'll reach out to WOWO and see if I can get on the air there. And well, good idea.
Since you haven't, I will try then calling there. I called them one time a long time ago. And supposedly their program director was happy to talk. So I think we'll make a suggestion too that they should have you on, especially being from the area. I know they'll most likely treat you pretty good while you're on, but as soon as you go off the air, I'm not expecting it to be too nice.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I got thick skin. I can handle it. No big deal. But yeah, that's a great idea, John. I'll reach out to them and see if I can get some airtime.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
We'll give them a call too.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, John. So I think we've got Adrian next, who has another question as well. So we can get Adrian unmuted. That'd be great. And it looks like you're good.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to ask another question here, but I was kind of curious, Chip. I know Jim Banks is very, very popular in this area, but what would you say, kind of, if you could put it in 3 points, what do you disagree with Jim Banks on, and what kind of separates the two of you? What would you say you disagree with him on? Obviously, aside from him always supporting Trump and the president, what would you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. It comes down to my big 3 things that I want to attack in Congress. Well, number 1, he's always voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act. So he's not really trying to figure out ways to help the middle class or the working class find ways to afford their health care. So that's the number 1 there. I'm in favor of trying to find a solution regardless of how it comes about. But he's, he wants to go back to the old way that things were done, where your health care will really only apply to those that can afford it and those that were already healthy to begin with. So that's my number 1 rallying cry there against Jim Banks. Number 2, if you look at the AFL-CIO ratings, they rank every politician about how they vote for labor unions. The average Republican has a 14% rating, voting in favor of legislation that helps labor unions, and his is a 5% rating. So he is even more so than the typical Republican against working or against labor unions throughout Northeast Indiana. So that's something that I want to try to reverse if I am elected, and something that he and I are really, contrast with there. And then lastly, Jim Banks, it's not even a question of why is the climate changing. Jim Banks is a climate change denier. And I think everybody that has, any sense of intelligence can figure out that the climate is changing. And we just got to figure out, why that is, but also, the solutions to make sure that we don't burn our planet up and we still keep our economy going. So there's no way you can fix the climate change until you admit that it's an actual problem. And Jim Banks doesn't even want to admit that it's a problem to begin with. So those are my big three things there that Jim Banks and I would disagree the most about.
Great, thank you so much. So I think we've got Curtis next, and then we see you, Paul, as well. So Curtis first, and then so we'll get Curtis unmuted, and as soon as that is, and you're good to go.
Okay, thanks a lot. I did have I was curious too about when you go work on committees after you're elected, beyond the healthcare and the environment and labor unions, have you thought about what committees you would like to work with?
Yeah, being a military member, a former military member, Armed Services Committee would be nice to work on. Veteran Affairs is always important as well. The committee that deals with science and education. This question, I was asked this question a few days ago, and those are probably my big three there. But I'm a team player. Whatever the needs of Congress that they feel that I would be the most beneficial to, and I'm willing to jump in and help out. It's about we. It's not about me. I have a wish list. But I'm always willing to put the needs of myself behind the needs of our country to get the job done.
Okay, great.
Thanks so much, Curtis. So I think we've got Paul Henderson.
Hey, Chip, once again, thank you for running. Thank you for your service. Just wondering, do you have any fundraisers or anything coming up in the near future after the quarantine is over that we can help you with? Just let us know. And also your climate change stand, I love that. That's just great.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of plan anything for a fundraiser with everything kind of being shut down. But, we did have a baked potato fundraiser a few months ago, back in February. I'd love to do something maybe kind of like a cookout type thing. I know up in, I believe it's Noble County, or they always have like some kind of cookout there. So some kind of cookout, if we can get out in the summer, where we could grill some food and sell some burgers or whatever to raise some funds, I think that would be a great idea. But we got to figure out this stay-at-home stuff before we can ever really start planning things like that.
Right. Yeah. Just keep us informed. You're most accountable.
Okay. Yeah. Whenever we get something figured out, we'll post it on the website. We'll blast it out through social media, and we'll make sure to advertise it, and so that way as many people that can come will show up.
Okay. Once again, thank you again for stepping up, and thank you for your service.
All right. Thank you, Paul.
Hello, Chip.
Hey, Gary.
Yes, Gary. We were going to check in.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
You're talking about Medicaid earlier, and there's all you have to remember. You have Medicare and Medicaid, two different programs. Medicare is what
Right.
Old farts like me dig into every month. Medicaid is where people that have needs, special needs, and so on. And when the gentleman asked about block grants, that's one of the things Republicans like to run down every chance they get. They would rather give it to Governor Holcomb to spend as he sees fit than they would apportion it to areas, districts, and so forth. So most Democrats are anti-block grants. They're just a waste of time, and they end up being corrupted and end up in somebody's pocket.
Yeah.
Rather than where they need to go. One of the things, if we have to do block grants, is mental health. It's not talked about much, but mental health can be used, can use block grants. About 20 years ago, the governors took down the mental health facilities here in Indiana, and there's been nothing to replace it other than individual people and their families have to come up with the money to put people in mental health facilities. And if that's a block grant or some portion of block grants, that's one of the triggers that you should probably be thinking about is mental health. My ultimate is that you talk about the three things you're interested in very much, and that's great. As a potential congressman, you might wake up someday and find out you're elected, and you're going to have to go to Washington and show up on that first day, find your way downtown to the Capitol. And what you're going to need to do before you get there is be locked and loaded on the things you want to bring with you in your briefcase.
Okay.
The three things you're talking about all take great research, a great amount of time to come up with good plans, and then meeting and working with other Congress people right away, other newbies like yourself, saying, hey, can we make a difference early on? What committees can you find your way to? Health and education, health and welfare, military. Those are the things that newbies usually end up on because there's so many seats available. You're not likely to get thrown into the security camera or security committees and the judicial committees because you're not a lawyer. So all those things factor into how you prepare now. And as you talk to people, get those opinions from those people. Do your own polling. What do people care about? Do they care about Medicare for all, or do they care about Medicare as an option, which is one of those good things that I think you need to be, concerning yourself with. So those just some comments I wanted to give to you. No questions. You and I talk often enough otherwise.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone. We appreciate this. If there's any more questions, we can keep answering those, or if anyone has things they'd like to share. I think we've got a couple questions that I think on some topics that folks could be interested in, since we've got a little bit of time. So we'll run through one or two of those while we can, and if anyone has anything in the meantime, let us know. So I think we'll start with one. I think money in politics and how our politics works in DC is on top of minds for a lot of voters. So Chip, I think we'd love to hear a little bit. What are you going to do in Congress to help address money in politics, partisan infighting, and just the general ineffectiveness of Congress?
Yeah, so a lot of people will say, nothing gets done in Congress, and I won't disagree with that. But I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they spend more time going to fundraisers than they do actually sitting down and talking with each other. So one of the things that I've talked about with other people is that I'm not running for Congress to make this a political career. So if I'm just in there for a 2-year term, so be it. But I'm going to go there and I'm going to spend most of my time trying to solve problems and not spending my time trying to rally up campaign funds and things like that. So I don't know if it's going to change the rest of Congress, but that's how my approach is going to be to it. Just go to it and do the best that I can for 2 years. And if people want to reelect me, then so be it. And if not, then I'll come back home and I'll go back to teaching and coaching football like I have been. So that's kind of my approach on politics and money there.
It's a good attitude.
Thanks so much, Chip. I think we've got, this is a little bit of another question we've got in the chat, and just a little bit generally as well. So Chip, could you talk a little bit, why are you in particular, as opposed to any of the others in this race, the best one to take on Jim Banks in the fall?
Yeah, so there's 3 other people running for the primary here, but I have experience in healthcare. I worked at Parkview Hospital when I was going to St. Francis. Then I worked at Huntington Hospital when I was attending IU, doing various jobs through the hospitals there. So I have hospital experience. So I've seen how people get treated when they have really good insurance. I've seen how patients get treated when they have poor insurance or no insurance at all. So I have that perspective. I have the military experience, 2 deployments to Afghanistan. So and then lastly, I'm a teacher. I've been teaching the last 8 years. I see the struggles that kids have, but also what the struggles that their families have. So all those 3 combined there, to be honest, I don't know if any of one of my opponents have one of those perspectives to bring up with Jim Banks, and I have all 3 there. So I've been doing some research, and to the best of my knowledge, I would be the only representative in Congress to have healthcare experience, military experience, and experience in education. So that's why I think I'd be the best one to take on Jim Banks.
Great, thanks so much. Looks like that might be all the questions that folks have. If anyone else does, feel free, again, to chat in this. I believe this is also going to be available. This is available on Facebook Live, so you'll be able to go back and check in on this. I think we're planning on doing some more. You know, give folks a little bit of time back if this is it. So Chip, if you want to have any closing remarks.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks for showing up. I know we're all living kind of under stressful situations and stuff we're not used to, so carving out a little bit of time to come and talk to me, I really appreciate it. I just encourage you to tell people about me if you think I'm qualified for the job. You know, I encourage people to if they have any extra money that they would like to donate to the campaign, feel free to do that. But you know, I'm not so worried about that. I think, you know, as long as I talk to people, my message will get out. But any extra campaign funds will always be helpful. But I know it's a difficult time right now as well. Lastly, you know, make sure we get our mail-in votes turned in, or if you can't do that, I still think you can vote in person on June 2nd, but it is best to mail in your votes. So make sure we get those done and vote for me if you think I'm the best person. So thank you for showing up, and I look forward to seeing you guys hopefully maybe in a few weeks here to do another one.
Thanks a lot, Chip. Good luck.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, John.